I stared in horror at my phone screen, watching in real time as flames consumed my wedding gown. The ivory satin dress that had taken 6 months to find, a modest splurge I'd justified despite my student loan payments, was now nothing but charred fabric in Diana Blackwood's perfectly manicured hands. My soon-to-be mother-in-law's face filled my iPhone screen as she broadcast herself on Instagram Live from the bridal preparation room at Cleveland's Grand Pavilion, her expression a mixture of triumph and disgust. "Now you can't marry my son," she declared through the video, her voice trembling with barely contained excitement. "Ethan needs someone from our medical community, not some glorified nurse's aide from a county facility." She adjusted her designer blazer, the one she wore to all her charity galas, and looked directly into the camera with cold satisfaction. "I've just saved the Blackwood family name from being tarnished. My name is Olivia Hayes, and at 28, I never expected to be watching my wedding dress burn via social media 30 minutes before walking down the aisle." My 3 bridesmaids clustered around my phone in shock, their sage green dresses forming a protective circle as my WhatsApp notifications exploded with incoming messages. "Mrs. Blackwood," I typed with surprisingly steady fingers in our one-on-one chat, "you have no idea what you just did." Within seconds, a new message from Diana appeared, "What I did. I saved my son from ruining his career and our family legacy. You think a nursing school certificate and a job wiping elderly patients makes you good enough to be a Blackwood? My Ethan belongs with Heather Pierce. Her father is chief of surgery at Mercy Hospital." I took a screenshot, my nursing training kicking in, document everything in a crisis. Gabrielle, my bridesmaid and fellow nurse, was already opening other windows in the hotel suite, trying to clear the tension that now filled the room like smoke. "The wedding's cancelled," Diana continued in another message, followed by a photo of my burning dress with a dismissive caption. "I'll tell everyone you realized you weren't prepared for our world. Ethan will be upset for a while, but he'll understand when he becomes hospital director someday. Are you certain about that?" I replied, attaching a screen recording of her Instagram Live broadcast. Below it, I pasted the group chat where our wedding guests, many of them medical professionals, were reacting in outrage. The reception hall's large screen that was meant to show our wedding highlights reel was now displaying Diana's live stream, her actions visible to everyone from hospital administrators to my elderly patients who had been invited. Diana's next message came quickly, her typical perfect grammar deteriorating. What is happening?" "Your public announcement," I explained calmly. "The Instagram Live you started is being projected in the ceremony space. We set it up so my patients in the elder care facility and Ethan's young patients who couldn't attend could still participate. It's been running for the past 20 minutes, capturing guests arriving, the medical staff from both our facilities setting up." I paused before sending a final message, "And you burning my wedding dress while explaining why healthcare workers like me are beneath your family. Delete that video now." Diana's frantic message appeared in all caps, followed by a flurry of calls I declined. "This is defamation. You planned this entire setup." Gabrielle quickly added her own message to our group chat, "Mrs. Blackwood, dozens of medical professionals just watched you commit property destruction while expressing your views about caregivers. As a hospital board member and charity director, you might want to consider the implications of your next move." My phone vibrated continuously with incoming messages. Zoe glanced at the notifications and gasped, "It's Ethan. He's sending an SOS to all the medical staff group chat. He's coming to the suite." A new message from Diana appeared, her panic evident in the typos. "This isn't what it looks like. I was just demonstrating the flammability of the fabric. As a patient safety advocate, I was concerned." From the stream of messages flooding my phone, I could see reactions from across the medical community. Dr. Lawrence Blackwood, Ethan's father and the hospital CEO, sat stone-faced in the front row of guests. Several of Ethan's fellow doctors were already rushing toward the building. Most telling were Ethan's own messages, no longer the calm, measured texts of a physician, but urgent, capital-letter declarations of support as he abandoned the altar to sprint toward me. "Olivia," Rebecca whispered, her voice carrying the same gentle tone she used with her pediatric patients, "what are we going to do about the ceremony? Should we tell everyone to leave? Some of your patients came all this way." I looked down at my phone displaying the charred remains of my dream dress, the one I'd saved for months to afford while still making student loan payments. The practical part of my mind, the part that had worked night shifts through nursing school, was already formulating a crisis response plan. "No," I said firmly, "this ceremony is happening, just differently. Let's activate the medical emergency protocol." The door burst open. Ethan stood there, still in his tuxedo, his face showing the same intensity I'd seen when he handled difficult cases in the pediatric ward. His eyes moved from my face to my phone showing his mother's messages, his jaw tightening as he processed the situation. The venue coordinator and his father appeared behind him, both looking as shocked as if they'd just witnessed a medical malpractice incident. "Mom," Ethan said, his voice carrying the quiet authority he used when delivering difficult news to parents, "tell me I didn't just watch you burn Olivia's wedding dress while saying a dedicated caregiver isn't worthy of our family name." Diana's response came as a flurry of messages, her tone shifting instantly. "Darling, you don't understand. I was protecting your career. This girl has been trying to climb the social ladder through you. Remember how she met you when you were doing rounds? I was testing her commitment to patient care." "Stop," Ethan interrupted our group video call, his medical training evident in his controlled response. "Stop fabricating narratives. I heard and saw everything." He turned to me, his expression softening the way it did when he spoke with his young patients. "Liv, I'm so deeply sorry. I had no idea she would do something so destructive." I stepped carefully away from my bridesmaids, moving toward him. "It's just fabric," I said, though we both knew as healthcare providers that objects can carry profound emotional significance. "But your mother just showed exactly what she thinks of caregivers like me, of our relationship, in front of our entire medical community." Ethan took my hands in his, ignoring his mother's stream of justification messages. "What do you want to do, Liv? As partners, this is your call too." Before I could answer, Dr. Lawrence Blackwood stepped forward, his expression carrying the grave seriousness I'd seen when he addressed hospital staff during crises. "Diana, what have you done?" His voice carried the weight of someone who'd managed medical emergencies for decades, controlled but with an unmistakable edge of authority. "Crisis unfolds, Lawrence, please," Diana pleaded through the video call, her perfectly polished charity director persona cracking under pressure. "You know the Pierces would make a far better alliance for our hospital network. Their family has been part of the medical establishment for generations, unlike Olivia, who merely worked her way up from nursing assistant to become a respected and dedicated caregiver." Dr. Blackwood's face, normally so diplomatic during hospital board meetings, hardened with unmistakable disgust. "You've crossed every ethical boundary this time, Diana." My phone continued vibrating with notifications, the medical community buzzing like a hospital during an emergency code. I glanced down to see messages flooding in from colleagues, patients, and healthcare professionals who were watching everything unfold on the live stream. The venue coordinator, herself a former hospital administrator, hovered anxiously in the doorway. "Ms. Hayes," she said with the careful tone used for delivering difficult news, "your guests, especially the elder care patients who made special arrangements to attend, are asking about the situation. Should we make some sort of announcement to the medical community gathered here?" I looked from my phone displaying the evidence of Diana's destruction to my bridesmaids in their sage green dresses, the color we'd chosen to represent healing and care. My mind, trained through years of crisis response in understaffed care facilities, was already formulating a treatment plan for this situation. "Tell them there's been an unexpected complication," I said, using the calm voice I reserved for anxious patients, "but the ceremony will still take place in about 20 minutes. We're implementing our backup protocol." Diana scoffed through the screen, her voice dripping with disdain. "In what? Your nurse's scrubs? You can't possibly expect to." In my contingency dress, I interrupted with the quiet confidence I'd developed handling difficult family members in the care facility. The room fell silent. Ethan looked at me with the same expression he wore when I found creative solutions for his pediatric patients' problems. "You have a backup wedding dress?" I hadn't, of course. But years of working in understaffed healthcare facilities where resources were always scarce had taught me to improvise with whatever was available. "Rebecca," I turned to my bridesmaid who worked in pediatrics with Ethan, "remember that healthcare charity fundraiser photo shoot we volunteered for last month in the Medical Quarterly? Call Sophia at the nursing administrative office and ask if her daughter's wedding dress is still available." Rebecca's eyes widened with recognition. "The simple ivory dress with the delicate embroidery, just like the one you showed me on your Pinterest board. With your build, it should fit perfectly." Ethan's father immediately stepped forward, pulling out his phone with the efficiency of a hospital administrator. "I'll have my driver collect it right away. Where exactly is Sophia's house located in relation to the medical center?" As they coordinated the retrieval with the precision of a transplant team, I turned back to Diana, whose face on my screen showed the shock of someone whose manipulations had failed. "Did you really think destroying a dress would stop two healthcare workers who've handled life and death emergencies together? After everything Ethan and I have been through during the pandemic and beyond?" "But everyone in the medical community is watching," she hissed, her voice tight with fury. "The hospital board, the donors, everyone saw what happened to that discount dress." "Yes," I agreed, channeling the direct honesty I used with my elderly patients, "they certainly did. And now they'll also witness what happens next." I switched to the group video call where I knew our guests were watching, speaking with the encouraging tone I used with recovering patients. "To all our friends, colleagues, and patients waiting, thank you for your understanding. The ceremony will be slightly delayed, but as healthcare workers, we know that healing and love find a way forward, even when faced with unexpected challenges." A chorus of supportive messages flooded the chat, medical professionals and patients alike showing their solidarity with encouraging words and medical-themed emoji responses. Ethan squeezed my hand, his eyes showing the same pride I'd seen when he watched me calm a frightened patient. "Mother," Ethan said with the firm clarity he used when setting boundaries with difficult patient families, "you need to leave now. Dad will handle the situation from here. Your presence is no longer appropriate at our wedding." Diana's expression contorted with the indignation of someone unaccustomed to consequences. "You would choose this caregiver over your own mother? After everything I've done for your career?" "After what you've done today," Ethan corrected with the precise emphasis of a diagnostician, "there's no other ethical choice." The next 20 minutes unfolded with the organized chaos of a well-coordinated emergency response. While Diana was escorted out by the venue security team, after Dr. Blackwood insisted with the apologetic firmness of a hospital administrator enforcing policy, Sophia from nursing administration arrived with not just one but 3 potential dresses, along with her daughter who insisted on helping. The bridal suite transformed into something resembling a trauma response center, with my bridesmaids, the venue staff, and even some of the female doctors and nurses who'd volunteered their assistance. "This one is perfect," Gabrielle declared with clinical confidence, holding up an elegant, simple ivory dress with subtle lace detailing. It complements your collarbone structure beautifully, and we can have it fitted within the timeframe we have. The venue seamstress, originally scheduled just for minor adjustments, worked with the focus and precision of a surgical team, making swift alterations with safety pins and expert stitches. Meanwhile, Ethan had returned to address our waiting guests, the live stream now positioned toward the ceremony space where medical colleagues and patients were gathered. Today's ceremony had an unexpected complication, he was saying, his voice carrying the steady reassurance that made him excellent with anxious children. But as Olivia and I have learned through our work in healthcare, it's not perfect circumstances that build strong relationships, it's how you respond together when things don't go according to plan. A wave of supportive applause followed his words, the medical community responding with understanding. I smiled as Rebecca adjusted the borrowed veil, feeling a rush of gratitude for my healthcare family. "There," she said with the satisfaction of completing a difficult but successful procedure. "You look absolutely radiant, like the compassionate healer you are." Ceremony preparations. The borrowed dress wasn't what I'd planned to wear when becoming Mrs. Ethan Blackwood, but as I examined my reflection, I realized it embodied everything about my nursing career, simpler, more practical, yet somehow more resilient than my original choice. Like how I'd adapted to challenging situations in healthcare rather than being overwhelmed by them. Dr. Lawrence Blackwood knocked gently on the door with the respectful manner he used when entering patient rooms. His eyes widened appreciatively when he saw me. "Olivia, you look absolutely beautiful." He paused, his expression carrying the gravity of a difficult diagnosis. I want to apologize for Diana's behavior. As a healthcare professional and as a father, I find it completely inexcusable. "You don't need to apologize for her actions, Dr. Blackwood," I replied with the directness I used with my patients' families. "You weren't the one who burned my dress." He nodded with the relief of someone receiving good test results. "Ethan asked me to let you know that everyone's prepared whenever you're ready, and," he added with a warm smile I rarely saw during hospital board meetings, "your supervisor from the elder care facility is here. Apparently, she's documenting everything for what she calls the most inspiring healthcare worker wedding story that will transform caregiver recognition in Cleveland." I laughed softly. Trust Sophia to see a teaching opportunity in crisis. My years in elder care had taught me that the most meaningful patient stories often came from navigating unexpected complications with compassion. The venue coordinator approached with the efficient manner of a charged nurse. "We're ready whenever you are, Ms. Hayes. The musicians have been briefed, and we've adjusted the lighting to highlight your new dress beautifully." "One moment," I said, a patient care plan forming in my mind. "Is the live stream still active for my elderly patients watching from the care facility?" When she confirmed it was, I made a clinical decision. Could we continue projecting it in the ceremony space for a few more minutes? I'd like my patients and everyone to witness our journey from crisis to resolution, the whole caregiving process, not just the final outcome. 10 minutes later, as my bridesmaids and I made our way through the venue's garden path toward the ceremony space, I felt the significance of each step being broadcast to the waiting guests. This wasn't just a traditional bridal procession but something more meaningful, a demonstration that healthcare workers who face daily challenges won't be deterred, not even by a vindictive mother-in-law with destructive intentions. As we approached the doors to the ceremony space, I could hear the supportive applause growing louder, reminiscent of the appreciation shown to healthcare workers during difficult times. Ethan waited at the entrance, his face illuminated with the same joy I'd seen when his young patients showed improvement. "Ready to begin our life together?" he asked, taking my hand with the gentle confidence he used with his pediatric patients. "More prepared than ever," I replied, squeezing his fingers with the reassurance I offered to my elderly patients when they faced uncertainty. The ceremony that followed wasn't the one we had rehearsed, but it felt more genuine than anything we could have planned. As I walked down the aisle in my borrowed dress, guests, many of them fellow healthcare workers and even some of my ambulatory patients, rose to their feet, applauding with the appreciation usually reserved for healthcare heroes. Their expressions showed not just celebration, but something I recognized from my work: respect, solidarity, and shared resilience. Dr. Blackwood stood proudly in the front row, occasionally glancing at the empty seat where Diana should have been. His eyes met mine briefly, conveying the same silent support I'd seen doctors give nurses during difficult cases. Our officiant, Chaplain Morris, who worked at both our facilities, improvised with the adaptability essential in healthcare. Dearly beloved, he began with practiced warmth. We are gathered here today to witness not just a union, but a triumph of compassion over prejudice. Olivia and Ethan have already demonstrated how they handle a crisis together, with the same grace, resourcefulness, and unwavering dedication they bring to their patients every day. During our vows, Ethan added words that hadn't been in our rehearsal. "I promise to stand beside you against anyone who fails to value your work and worth," he said, his voice carrying throughout the room and beyond to those watching the live stream, even if, especially if, that person is from my own family or medical community. When the time came for exchanging rings, a moment of concern crossed Ethan's face. The rings had been with his mother during pre-ceremony preparations. Dr. Blackwood immediately stepped forward, producing the velvet box from his pocket with the preparedness of a surgeon. "I took the precaution of securing these earlier," he explained quietly, applying preventative care, as it were. After we were pronounced husband and wife, the celebration that erupted released all the tension that had built up, like the relief following a successful medical intervention. As we walked back down the aisle, I noticed Sophia, my supervisor, recording discreetly from the side. She gave me a thumbs up that managed to be both professionally approving and genuinely emotional. The reception that followed in the venue's elegant ballroom had an atmosphere unlike any medical function I'd attended before. Instead of the usual restrained professional interactions, there was an almost triumphant solidarity in the air. Someone had quickly created a custom social media filter featuring a caduceus intertwined with a phoenix, with our names underneath. "Your wedding is trending in healthcare circles online," Gabrielle informed me as we entered the reception. "People are using #caregiversrising and #medicinemeetslove." Ethan's medical school roommate, Dr. Andrews, who now worked in healthcare communications, approached with his phone. "The medical journal wants a comment." Their community health editor saw the live stream. Apparently her mother is one of Olivia's patients, and they're calling it the most inspirational healthcare worker wedding of the year. "Tell them we're grateful for the support of our medical community," Ethan replied, his arm securely around my waist, "and that true healing happens when we stand together against prejudice and value every member of the healthcare team." As the evening progressed, I noticed Dr. Blackwood engaged in intense conversations with various hospital board members, his crisis management skills evident in his measured gestures and expressions. Ethan's Aunt Patricia, herself a retired physician, approached our table during dinner, leaning in to speak confidentially. "Lawrence is absolutely devastated," she confided. "Diana's been escorted home, but she's threatening to withdraw her foundation's support from the pediatric wing if Ethan doesn't reconsider his choices." Lawrence informed her that after today's display, she's the one who needs to worry about her position on the hospital board and charity councils. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table. "Dad's always been the ethical compass of the hospital," he said softly. "Mom just never realized it because he allowed her to take public credit for his initiatives." As our first dance began, I couldn't help noticing the empty tables near the front of the room, space is reserved for Diana's Charity Foundation colleagues who had quietly disappeared after the incident. In their place, my fellow nurses and care workers had moved forward, filling the void with authentic support. Dr. Blackwood is handling the situation with remarkable professionalism, Sophia observed, approaching us after the dance with 2 glasses of champagne. He's personally thanking everyone for their support while diplomatically making it clear that Diana's enablers won't be missed. Ethan nodded, watching his father navigate the room with new appreciation. I think this is the first time I've seen him publicly prioritize ethics over appearances, he reflected. 30 years of marriage, and today was when he finally drew a clear boundary. The wedding photographer, originally hired by Diana, approached us with professional caution. Mrs. Blackwood, the younger Mrs. Blackwood, she clarified with a warm smile, I've captured some powerful moments today, but I wanted to consult you about the dress incident. Some of the healthcare staff took photos. Would you prefer I request they maintain privacy protocols? I exchanged glances with Ethan before answering with the honesty I valued in patient care. Actually, I believe transparency is the healthiest approach. This is part of our story now, and perhaps it can help others. As if confirming my assessment, my phone vibrated with a notification. The recorded clip of Diana's Instagram Live had already garnered over 20,000 views on a local healthcare network page. The comments section overflowed with support, interspersed with stories from other healthcare workers who had faced discrimination and classism. This wasn't the outcome anyone expected, Sophia remarked, scrolling through the comments, but you've inadvertently sparked an important conversation about valuing all healthcare roles equally. Standing firm against professional hierarchy discrimination is resonating deeply within the medical community. Ethan's cousin Dr. Lynn approached our table, her expression a mixture of professional composure and personal concern. I want you both to know that the majority of medical staff in the family reject Aunt Diana's attitudes completely, she stated firmly. Most of us believe she violated not just social boundaries, but the core ethical principles of healthcare. After the reception, thank you, Dr. Lynn, I replied, genuinely moved by her support. That means more than you know. As the evening progressed, Ethan received a text message from his father. He read it silently before turning his phone screen toward me. Diana has locked herself in the east wing of the house. She's demanding I choose between the hospital's reputation and that caregiver. I've informed her that her behavior today has made my professional and personal priorities remarkably clear. We'll discuss restructuring the foundation's leadership when you return from your honeymoon. Immensely proud of you both. Dad, are you all right? I asked Ethan softly, studying his face with the careful assessment I used with my patients when delivering difficult news. I'm actually better than all right, he replied, squeezing my hand with the gentle firmness he used to reassure anxious children. For years, I've watched Mom undermine Dad's medical ethics, dismiss your profession, and manipulate every healthcare initiative to boost her social status. Today, she finally revealed her true priorities to the entire medical community, not just to us. It feels like removing a compression bandage that was too tight. As the reception continued, I observed something remarkable occurring, the kind of positive change I sometimes witnessed in my care facility when a toxic influence was removed. Guests who had been professionally stiff and hierarchical at the beginning, Diana's hospital board contacts and charity circle, were now engaging more genuinely with my nursing colleagues and care assistants. Without Diana's watchful enforcement, the artificial barriers between different levels of healthcare workers were dissolving. The venue coordinator approached with the warm smile usually reserved for delivering good news to patients. There's something special you should see. She guided us to the entrance of the ballroom where, prominently displayed on a medical presentation easel, was a large frame filled with dozens of handwritten notes. The heading read, "Messages of Healing and Solidarity for Olivia and Ethan, Where Medicine Meets Love." "Your fellow healthcare workers organized this," she explained. They asked guests to share messages of professional support and personal encouragement after what happened. 1 week into our honeymoon at a beachside resort, the ripple effects of what had transpired at our wedding continued to unfold. Ethan and I sat on our private balcony overlooking the turquoise ocean, scrolling through messages during our daily check-in with the medical world back home. "Dad says Mom's staying with her sister at the Mayo Clinic," Ethan said, setting down his phone with the careful neutrality he maintained when discussing difficult family members with patients. Apparently, Aunt Caroline is the only board-certified professional who still accepts her version of events, that she was demonstrating fabric safety standards and everyone misinterpreted her intentions. I smiled with the gentle skepticism I'd developed working with patients in denial. Difficult to misinterpret someone declaring, "Now you can't marry my son," while live streaming her self-destroying property. The medical community had embraced our story wholeheartedly. What began as a shocking incident at a doctor-nurse wedding had evolved into a meaningful conversation about professional respect across healthcare roles and maintaining ethical boundaries in medical families. Several healthcare publications had requested interviews about bridging the hierarchical gaps in medicine. Sophia says the elder care facility has received 3 new partnership proposals specifically requesting the team with the Healthcare Phoenix. I laughed, showing Ethan the message on my tablet. "She wants to know if we'd consider speaking at the Caregivers Recognition Symposium when we return." Ethan took my hand, his thumb gently tracing my new wedding band in the soothing circular motion he used when calming anxious patients. "Only if you feel comfortable with it. We can maintain our privacy if you'd prefer." I thought about the numerous messages we'd received from other healthcare couples facing similar challenges with professional hierarchies and family disapproval. Perhaps our experience could provide a therapeutic example for others. Not the traditional beginning I imagined for our marriage, I reflected, but far more authentic, Ethan finished, completing my thought with the synchronicity we'd developed working crisis situations together. Just like us. 3 months after our wedding, Ethan and I attended the Blackwood Medical Foundation's annual benefit gala, our first official public appearance since returning from our honeymoon. The event, previously dominated by Diana's social networking agenda, had been completely reimagined under Dr. Lawrence Blackwood's direction. "Feeling anxious?" Ethan asked with the perceptiveness of a good diagnostician as our car approached the Cleveland Medical Center's new community outreach building. "A bit," I admitted, smoothing the emerald green evening gown that Sophia's daughter had designed for me. She had transformed our wedding story into a successful line promoting diversity in healthcare with the tagline "Valued Care, Valued Careers." Inside, the atmosphere had undergone a remarkable transformation from previous years. The rigid hierarchy had been replaced with collaborative energy. Dr. Blackwood welcomed us at the entrance, looking revitalized without Diana's controlling influence, like a patient freed from chronic pain. "Here they are," he announced warmly, embracing us both with genuine affection. "The couple who inspired our foundation's most important initiative yet." He guided us toward an interactive display showcasing the Blackwood Medical Foundation's newest program, Caregiver Rising Scholarships and Grants, supporting the full spectrum of healthcare heroes. The foundation's new logo subtly incorporated a phoenix alongside the traditional medical caduceus. "We've already approved funding for 15 caregivers," Dr. Blackwood explained with evident satisfaction, each one advancing their education or developing innovative patient care protocols. As we mingled with attendees, I noticed how Diana's absence had transformed the guest list. Gone were the status-conscious hospital donors and social climbers, replaced by diverse healthcare professionals genuinely passionate about patient care and medical education. Mrs. Blackwood, a young woman in nursing scrubs, approached, introducing herself as one of the scholarship recipients. Your wedding story gave me the courage to speak up about the hierarchical barriers in my hospital unit. Now I'm developing a cross-discipline communication protocol that's improving patient outcomes. Later that evening, as Ethan and I shared a quiet moment in the medical center's healing garden, he received a text message. "Mom's returning to Cleveland," he said, his expression showing the measured optimism he used when treatments showed promise. "Dad says she's agreed to professional counseling if she wants any possibility of rejoining the foundation in a modified role." I squeezed his hand with the supportive pressure I used with recovering patients. "Whatever develops with your parents, we'll navigate it together, just like we managed the wedding crisis." He smiled, drawing me close with the gentle certainty that made him excellent with frightened children. Some flames are meant to destroy. Others illuminate what truly cannot be broken, like the bond between people who heal together.